Welcome to the Good Intentions Show, coming to you live on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intentions Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions one intention at a time. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Yes, this is the Good Intentions Show, where you will meet people who live life intentionally and hear about things they're not telling you in the mainstream media. And now, here's the truth seeker, the snake charmer, a legend in his own mind, broadcasting live all over the universe, your host, Mr. Tim Ray.
Wowzer! Bet you haven't heard that word in a while, folks. We are back live on air and TV, radio and TV. This is the new gig, radio TV, folks. And we have an incredible guest, Mark, Stephen Pooler and I. Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you, Tim. Great to be here today with an incredible guest. I'm so looking forward to today's show.
Oh, absolutely. Mark finds the most fascinating people in the world, and he brings them on our show that we have a chance to talk to and get to know. And today we have the Unstoppable Tracy. And Mark, I have you tell us a little bit about her in a second. But first, I want to ask, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. Now, Mark, you are, of course, a radio TV host yourself, international bestseller, but you're always up to something, man. And give us a quick highlight since last time we spoke.
Okay, so I've spoken at a couple of amazing events. I've got some great events coming up, lots of press and PR working with my clients. Just super busy, but life is really good, Tim.
Well, you know what? And if you all don't know Mark's history, you should go back in our archives and check out a show we did with him, or show or two we did with him, and it's fascinating what he's been able to do and what struggles he came from. Talk about unstoppable, the unstoppable Mark. Maybe we need to add that on there too, you know. But
I'll take that.
I know you take that. So tell us about the Unstoppable Tracy, because she's everywhere. She's hanging out with Michael Keaton on shows, RoboCops. She's Michael Douglas, Dr. Phil, Jane Fonda. I mean, she's everywhere, all over the world here, hanging out with all these big dudes and big gals and making a difference. So tell us all about her.
Firstly, she popped up on my Facebook feed about a year ago or maybe longer, and it was a presentation she was delivering, and it was called "And the Principal Says." Talk about an emotional talk that brings tears to your eyes. The delivery was absolutely incredible, and I just thought, what an incredible speaker. Since then, I have been on an inspirational speakers summit that she was also part of. She is absolutely incredible. She's a professional speaker, a TV host, #1 transformational leader of 170 countries.
Wow.
By the John Maxwell team, and she's also a TEDx speaker.
Yes.
Welcome to the Good Intentions Show, Unstoppable Tracy.
Yes,
yes. Mark, Stephen, and Tim, thank you.
Absolutely. So, wow. I just want to jump in, Tracy. You like Unstoppable Tracy or just Tracy? What do you prefer?
Unstoppable Tracy.
Okay. Unstoppable Tracy. I love that. Just name. It's just what a great, great name.
I'll call you Terrific Tim and Magnificent Mark Stephen.
I like that.
So Unstoppable Tracy, you have done so much, and what I love about your story, of course, you're a four-way amputee, which you could talk about here in a minute, and we'll talk about your history and where you came from and what you're doing. But your story really is about not surviving. Your story is about thriving, and that's this type of inspiration for so many around the world has transformed lives, as you know on your speaking tour and your circuit that you're on, of course, with Maxwell and of course TEDx and everything else, but. Why don't we jump in there? Why don't you tell us a little about your history, so a lot of our viewers and listeners may not know your story. So let's start from the beginning. What was it like growing up, and what happened?
So, the story that Mark Stephen was talking about, just hit 2019 alone was like over 50 million views.
Wow.
But just in case one of you aren't one of those 50 million, a highlight of that story that's kind of a nice framing about growing up. My first day of school, when we faced the principal face to face, his first response to us was like, he was sweating and he was breathing heavy because he just ran out to us to stop us in the street, and he was shaking his head no. And he said to this like 5-year-old that'd been waiting all summer to go to the school, he's like, I'm sorry, you can't go to this school. And I just said it to you, and I got goosebumps.
Right.
My hair is standing up on my arm, remembering like it was yesterday.
And it was because of why?
And so that's exactly where Mom went. But instead of saying why, which is really our temptation, is, well, why? And sometimes why puts people on the defense, not with your beautiful voice tone and your magnificent body language, and you're so approachable, Tim, with your lovely voice. But a really, a tip and a trick for all of us out there is, instead of asking why, if we just say, how come? And so Mom did in her friendliest way. She just did the nicest voice, and she said, how come? And so he comes back non-defensively, because I imagine a lot of listeners were like ready to take him on for me and be all Papa Bear, Mama Bear. But Mom didn't. She stayed calm and friendly. And when we're all told no, we can just follow the same pattern for our no's, whether they're partners or sponsors. And she just said, how come? And he comes back and he's like, I realize it's 1970s and you think it would be better, but Tracy's got no legs, so she's not going to be able to go to the washroom by herself. And Tracy's got no hands, and she's not going to be able to tie her shoelaces at recess time. And there's only one teacher, and there's 30 kindergarten kids. How is she going to be able to manage alone? And so it kind of makes sense. He wasn't being a bad guy. It was like this teacher was all alone. So my mom replies, and we can all reply after really listening, I totally understand. And she says, can you give me till Friday to figure out one of these other schools? And since we're here, do you think we could just try till Friday? And so he figures, yeah, we can make it work till Friday. So she says, thank you. And we go up to the front door of the school, and my mom drops to her knees in front of the whole school. And I'm 5 years old, and I'm like, what is she doing? And of course, what she wants to do, and what we all need to do, is she wants to look me eye to eye. And she grabs my arm. You know that 5-finger grip that parents get when they want you to really focus and listen, and you don't seem like you're listening, right? And she's holding my arms, and she's pinning them side to side. And she's on her knees, eye to eye, looking at me, and she says, Tracy, it's really important that you and everybody's included. Nobody left behind.
Wow.
Well, I'm 5 years old. I have no idea why she's so intense, right? And I say, okay, Mom. The principal heard the whole thing. And so now his heart is in his stomach, and he's like, I don't want to tell her that she has to leave on Friday, because he's like practically in tears. So fast forward to recess time, and he tries to see if I make it outside, I can stay. So he's all excited. I never made it outside.
Oh, no.
So he's devastated, and he's like, I got to tell her mom. I got to explain. So he runs inside to ask my teacher, what happened? He says, couldn't she tie her shoelaces? And the teacher's all confused, and she's like, actually, Tracy was the first one to tie her shoelaces. And in fact, none of the 30 kids could tie their shoelaces. And Tracy insisted on tying them all. And she had no idea why. She didn't realize my mom said, no one left behind. So, how come we're in this world where the only girl with no hands was the only student required to be able to tie her shoelaces? So a lot of us, we are faced with, it makes sense. Oh, only people with a master's can do that. Or this is a man's job. Or I'm too short to play basketball. Or I've been on maternity leave and I can't be an entrepreneur. I'm outside of the business world. So we have these standards or these ways of thinking that make sense. Like how can a four-way amputee with no arms and no legs go to kindergarten with one teacher and no support? But you can do it. Anything is possible for all of us. We are all shoelace leaders. We are all valuable contributors. We
What,
can all make it work, right?
Tracy? What a learning moment for the school and for everyone in
Yeah.
that process where it's like, wow. And you're right. We look at folks who we think need to do so much more, and we think we have to focus on. We everybody else. We're like, okay, well, we assume that they can do it, and we don't really hold people to that same standard for whatever reason. It's probably some type of psychological factor, I'm sure, that you realize. But I love the fact that you say how come versus why. That's what a takeaway, Unstoppable Tracy, for that. Mark, did you want to ask her a question too in reference to her story?
I just think listening to that story and how she was the one that was tying at all of their shoelaces. What an incredible story, Unstoppable Tracy. And
Oh.
even now, you still got all of that determination and drive, and it started back from the age of 5 years old. I am very, very inspired. I just think it's incredible.
Okay.
Tim, back to you.
So, Unstoppable Tracy, you at 5, I would assume maybe you had such a loving mother that you had such a positive perspective on life. But you're talking about going against so many odds. I mean, honestly, um, do, can you share a little bit of the roller? Was it a roller coaster of ups and downs, or did you have this always this unstoppable Tracy attitude?
You know, my mom's from Liverpool, England.
Mhm.
Mark Stephen, our fellow British
Yes.
host on the line. We're such a international today. We've got US, UK, and Canada. We're like all over the world, which is lovely. So mom was from Liverpool, England, and it was like right after the war, and there was some really powerful, passionate unions. But the result was that there was a lot of businesses that went bankrupt in Liverpool. So there's a lot of people with unemployment. So they were kind of this tough love approach because everybody was out of work, but they were all framing it with that fun humor that you've got. And so it's no coincidence that I was the only kid in that class that could tie my shoelace. And I remember being on a front lawn, and it there was kids on the other lawn. I grew up in affordable housing, and so there was like gravel driveway between our homes, and we were on this big steep hill. And my mom opens the door because I'm crying on the front lawn, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Well, the kids over there, I want them to come play on my lawn, but one of the kids said, 'Don't talk to her. She's weird.'" And so I'm upset. And she's like, "Well, how's that working for you?" And shut the door. And I'm like, "Wow." So that seems like tough love, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'm allowed to be sad. Like it's not fair that I'm being left out over there,
Right.
feeling that way.
Right.
Or I can be sad and do something about it, right? Was the message that I took from mom. So I rolled down the driveway or around my front lawn, the grass lawn. I didn't have my legs on, and there was a skateboard on the road, and I like to say I borrowed this random skateboard that was down there, and I'm missing my legs and I'm missing my left arm, but on the right side I'm missing my hand, but I have a bit of a longer arm.
Right.
So I took my longer arm and I sat on the skateboard and I skateboarded across the gravel driveway on the
Oh
road.
God.
And I rolled up the lawn to our folks. And I rolled up the lawn. And when I got to the top of the lawn, all of the kids were wide eyed, right? Super wide eyed saucers. And I could see the tough kids sort of like getting this angry face, like, hey, she didn't respect the boundaries. And I knew I had to speak before he did. I realized
Tracy,
if I get the space. Yes, Mark Steven.
we're just coming to a commercial break, and
Okay.
this story is incredible. So let's pick up on this amazing cliffhanger. Straight after the break, we'll be with Unstoppable Tracy, professional speaker and TV host. Join us in a couple of minutes.
Find out what happened.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Friday.
Hi, this is Amy and Gina from In the Burbs, and we want to talk to you about your roof. Do you have a sexy roof?
If you have wind damage or your roof is older, or are you looking to purchase a home and want to make sure the roof is in good shape, you need to contact Roofing and Exterior Solutions. #SexyRoofs.
Hashtag Sexy Roofs will inspect your roof, take pictures, and give you a free estimate, and they will handle the insurance process.
#SexyRoofs have been in business for over a decade and have always been right here in Georgia.
Their crews have been with them forever. They really are experts for anything roofing. Contact roofingandexteriorsolutions.com or find them on social media at #SexyRoofs.
UI Media Network is proud to be associated with ShiftCon as their media sponsor.
ShiftCon is a social media conference for bloggers who really care about wellness, the environment, lifestyle, and food.
This movement towards cleaner products is not a fad because cancer and food allergies and autism are not fads.
It's really a place where people can come and learn and just fill their cup up with love and then go out there and educate their audience.
So guys, get ready to experience 3 days of learning about health and wellness, exploring the expo of sponsors, and networking with other influencers.
It's October 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so go to shiftconmedia.com to register now. Shiftconmedia.com. We're down there right now in Atlanta, our crew is, and it's all about top influencers and bloggers in the world, all about wellness, from food we eat to our the sky to the drinks that we drink, everything from our lifestyles and wellness. And it's top people who are just saying, hey, enough's enough, who challenge the big pharma and the big main groups out there who are not really giving us what we need to have a thriving life with the basics. So check it out, guys. Go to shiftconmedia.com. Plug in there. It's not too late. It's all weekend long, and you can plug in UI Meeting, get 30% off any of the tickets. So I'll be down there at around 2 o'clock today, so I'll hopefully see everybody down there as well, and we'll have some fun. I'll be interviewing some of these top influencers in the world, making a difference. And it's not easy. It's not easy getting out there every day to go against the mainstream, go against where the birds are flying in the opposite direction, and to fly against that, And I'll tell you, my heart goes out for everyone who does live like that. And one person who does is the Unstoppable Tracy, who's been flying against the birds from day one, literally. So we stopped you, Unstoppable Tracy, right in the middle of your story there. Just give us a little recap of what you were saying, and then jump back into it.
So we were talking about ups and downs in life, and my mom saying, how's that crying working for you? So I rolled down a lawn and I rolled up the other lawn before the commercial break, and I'm face to face with my bully, and everybody's stunned in that moment of silence. And I see his face screwing up like he's ready to say something. And I knew that I needed to speak first to create, the environment that I was looking for. And it's true now, whether it's Air Canada strikes or whether it's, a pharmaceutical going through government reform or trying to bust Uber into Canada. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or you're breaking Uber into Canada. There's always this moment where it's really crucial that you speak up and create the space. So before anything was said, I was scared out of my mind. But even though I made eye contact with them all and I plastered on this smile, which wasn't authentic because I was afraid, and with the biggest smile I could, I'm just like, hi, I'm Tracy. Can I play? Oh. And it kind of stunned them, like, oh, she wants to play, right? And I'm face to face. And so the tough kid, he's sort of regrouping, and he comes back with, well, the new kid's always it. And I had no idea, without my legs, I was going to play tag or hide and seek, right? I'm like, oh, these guys are going to outrun me for sure. And they're all going to walk off onto the gravel driveways, which I can't do. So I don't know. But I knew that I had to be it. If I was going to play, I had to be it. So even though I didn't know how, I did it anyway. And I'm like, okay. And for some miracle of miracles, not one kid ran off the front lawn. They all played tag and they all play hide and seek right there on that lawn. And so I was able to roll around with the grass and on my stumps, on my knees, and I could play. And I kind of think of like, I didn't know how I would ski.
Right.
But I knew I wasn't going to figure it out on a couch at home. I wasn't going to figure it out Googling 4-way amputee skiing, right? Like it just wasn't in existence.
Right.
So I had to go for it and figure it out. And so we're kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to raise millions of dollars for my business, or I don't know how I'm going to be the only woman in a man's world. I don't know how I'm going to do World Cup sailing with 30 able-bodied people with arms and legs and be 27 men and only 3 girls. But I know I'm going to go for it. Yeah.
Tracy, you remind me of Ross Perot. Ross Perot said he always took on his bad regional accent. He always took on the projects that he knew at that moment he could not do. He'd always he'd say, we'll do it, right? And he knew he didn't have the resources, he didn't have the know-how, he didn't have the skill set to do it. But he did know this. Somewhere halfway throughout this project, he would figure out how. And that's what set him up for success in the future. And it sounds like that's exactly from your spirit of how you look at life.
Exactly. And I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I was born a 4-way amputee.
Right.
Because at 5, if I wanted to play, or if I wanted to go to school, or if I wanted to be in that recess yard, I knew that I could stay home and not be part of it, or I could figure out how and play the game. And so at 5, I got to figure out that I was born L-I-M-B. I was born limitless. Limitless. It's a bad joke when I got to spell it.
I get it now. Well, thanks for spelling it out for me.
Yeah. But the bigger secret is that you are born limitless too. Terrific Tim and magical Mark Steven and phenomenal listeners, right? We're all limitless. But at 5 years old, because I was lucky enough to be born this way, I got to be forced in a way to figure it out. So I got to learn that earlier.
What an inspiration, Mark, isn't it? Here it is. She, a 4-way amputee, born that way, and has such a unlimited perspective on life. And we'll talk about a lot of the things you've been up to and what you can be doing later on in the show. I just want to emphasize more on for people to understand how here it is. You look back in your life now, and you would not change one thing. You would not change one thing in reference to how you look, your challenges, what you've been through, because you know you wouldn't be Unstoppable Tracy if you didn't have these life experiences. And for the person out there who's about to end their life, who's about to kill themselves because of whatever the circumstances has happened to them in the past or whatever's occurring to them in the present moment, that they just want out. Their pain is so high, so strong that it's overcoming their love of spirit and life right now.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for them? And I know that you feel this right now, Tracy. So what advice do you have for that person who's on the ledge, literally?
I have no idea what's going on whenever I enter a room behind somebody's eyes, right? What's going on in their mind, even for every single one of our listeners right now. I don't know what is going on in your life. And I know that I have every excuse to be collecting welfare, and nobody would judge me, and not be traveling in 20 countries in 2019, right? Nobody would judge me to not be in 22 cities in the last 30 days, right? Nobody would judge the extraordinary amount of effort it would take as a 4-way amputee to travel and drive and planes and trains and all of those things. But I know that when I live a life of no excuses, as much as that's tough love, when I live a life of no excuses, I live a life of no limits. No excuses, no limits. And I always say that the worst thing in the world is not being born a 4-way amputee, for example. The worst thing in the world is having a really good reason, is having a really good excuse. Right? I don't know who's going through divorce. I don't know who's going through terminal illness. I don't know who's going through, suicidal thoughts. The worst thing in the world is a really good reason or a really good excuse. Because when we have a good excuse, all my life people are saying, oh, that's okay, Trace. Right? Or no, I don't think so. Or why not take a rest? Why not take a time out? Why not? And it's the worst thing when you have a really good reason for something to not work out and not to jump in right now, not to jump in today, not to have enough money, right? We have a good reason, a good excuse. But when we have no excuses, we have no limits.
That's profound. And Mark, playing the victim is no different than realizing that you're limited, right? And you and I both have played victim and periodically play victim at any given moment based on whatever the circumstances are being thrown at us. So, Unstoppable Tracy, when did you bring being victimless as part of your not only your story, but as part of your it's the pervasiveness throughout your body, throughout your soul, that this is not me. I'm not a victim. When did this occur over time? Was it right from the get-go? How did this develop for you?
I as a 4-way amputee and as a female in the 70s, and
you had it all going on, didn't you?
I had it all going on, right? I had red hair, I had braces, I had freckles, I had glasses. I was just like perfect 10 out of 10 for whatever victim I wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that what's funny is I was teased more about being a redhead than I was about not having legs, It's like, wait a minute, what? And I love redheads.
Me too. They're my favorite, just so you know.
Yeah, right, with the fiery
Yeah,
spirit.
Exactly.
Right, and so I think. So what would happen as well is people, through no fault, not knowing any better, people would underestimate. And sometimes we underestimate women. Sometimes we underestimate short people. Sometimes we underestimate people with an accent. Sometimes we underestimate people from another country, right? So as a 4-way amputee female with glasses and braces and freckles and red hair, I was sometimes underestimated.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that meant I can't play the game. I can't be part of it. So
the reindeer games.
The reindeer games. And so it was kind of like, I can do it. So when they said, no, you can't go skiing, is like, I could do it. No, you can't go sailing. I can do it. Or no, you can't drive a car. I can do it. No, you can't play with us. I can do it. So I ended up being underestimated was again a bit of a favor, because it caused this fire in me to say, I could do it. Yeah. And I spent a lot of my life saying, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, even right up to the Paralympic trials for World Cup sailing. Wow. I gave up everything to say I can do it. When I was on a flight and I thought I was going to die, it was during Hurricane Sandy in New York. It flooded subways and it washed away homes in Rhode Island. And I happened to be in the air and I thought I was going to die. And when I thought that moment, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pursue my Paralympic dream if I live. And when I landed that plane, I didn't land the plane. When the plane was landed,
I wouldn't doubt it, though.
I
would have believed you if you said you landed the plane, Tracy.
I landed the plane. Yes. That's it. And maybe my spirit did. Maybe the energy I put out there was part of it.
That's something.
Because I put that out to the, I believe in God. And I said, if I live, or if you believe in the universe or whatever you believe in, the power of manifestation is huge too.
Yeah.
Like I said, if I live, I want to pursue my Paralympic dream. And I did. And so the plane lands and I'm in the parking lot of the airport. I didn't even leave the airport parking lot. And I was Googling and phoning people to say, what's it going to take? And every single one of them said, there's no way. You'd need 10,000 hours. You'd need $10,000 for a boat. You need 10,000.
Something.
So many 10,000s they were putting out there. And I said, well, thanks for letting me know. But what if I had a magic wand? What would it take? And they said, oh, you'd need Magnus Ligidol in your back pocket. He's like the only gold Olympian in North America.
On that note, we are just coming to another commercial break, just as it's getting juicy, but
nice
we all
cliffhanger.
have problems, we all have obstacles, and no excuses. Today's show is going to inspire a lot of people to step up. It is with me. Let's pick up with Unstoppable Tracy straight after the break.
Right. UI Media Network is proud to be associated with ShiftCon as our media sponsor.
ShipCon is a social media conference for bloggers who really care about wellness, the environment, lifestyle, and food.
This movement towards cleaner products is not a fad because cancer and food allergies and autism are not fads.
It's really a place where people can come and learn and just fill their cup up with love and then go out there and educate their audience.
So guys, get ready to experience 3 days of learning about health and wellness, exploring the expo of sponsors, and networking with other influencers.
It's October 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so go to shipconmedia.com to register now. All right, we are back live in Roswell, but we're speaking to people all over the world right now. Somebody in Toronto, Tracy, Unstoppable Tracy in Toronto, the magnificent Mark Pooler, Stephen Pooler in UK, and we're having such a fun time. And boy, just when Tracy starts getting really head hot on her stories, we have to cut her off. So go back to the cliffhanger, Tracy. What were you saying?
So I survived a death-defying moment
In the plane.
on the plane, and I was asking folks, how do I pursue my Paralympic dream? And they were all saying, no, you can't, right? And what did it take? And I said, well, a magic wand, what would it take? And they said, well, you'd need like 24/7 with a gold Olympian. There's just no way. And I said, do you know any? And they said, I don't think there's any in Canada. And they said, oh, wait, there's Magnus Ligidol in Miami, Florida. But there's no way, right? He's a gold Olympian. He trains able-bodied men.
Wow.
He doesn't work with women and people with disabilities probably, right? And I said, I understand. Thank you very much. Just kind of like my mom did with the principal. I understand. Thank you very much. It's not agreeing. It's just understanding their perspective, right?
Yes.
And I hung up the phone and I phoned him and I tweeted him and I emailed him and Magnus never replied. And I realized, like with the principal, with my mom, I needed to speak to Magnus's listening. I'm a nobody on email and Facebook. So I packed up everything I owned, my bed, my dresser, and if it didn't fit in my car, I sold it or gave it away. And I drove down to Miami, Florida, and got rid of everything. And I arrive in Miami, Florida 5 days later, and guess who's not in the parking lot? Magnus. And where his trailer is for his boat stuff was in a parking lot called Shake-a-Leg.
Shake-a-Leg. How appropriate.
So I'm like, this is perfect. So I figure who you surround yourself with is who you become, right? I was on this journey to surround myself with a gold Olympian so that I become a gold Olympian Paralympian. So I hide my car between two multi-million-dollar yachts so that who you surround yourself with is who you become. I sleep in my car that night, and I wake up at 5:30 in the morning with the sun because I'm sleeping in my car. Guess who's washing boats at 5:30 in the morning? Magnus Ligidol. I go running over to Magnus, and I'm Magnus, I'm Tracy from Toronto. I'm sorry that I tweeted you and Facebooked you and emailed you and LinkedIn you. I know I was a little bit harassing, but I'm Tracy from Toronto, and I want to pursue my Paralympic dream. And Magnus did what you did. Just a very polite chuckle.
Yeah. Like, okay.
He's like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And I realized that I'd forgotten my 5-year-old lesson. I wasn't speaking to Magnus's listening. And a lot of times we do this when we're trying to pitch somebody or sell somebody or raise funds or make a difference, even with a really good cause as a not-for-profit person. I was me, right? Magnus was washing a boat. So I picked up a sponge and I started washing a boat. And I was washing and waxing the boat with Magnus. Does this make you think of any movies out there, washing and waxing?
Yes, but listen, Tracy, in all honesty, how'd you pick up a sponge?
So I have one, for those that are just listening and can't see, I have one arm. My right arm is a little bit longer.
Okay.
And you'll see pictures of me if you search Unstoppable Tracy. But I have a digit.
Yes.
And I I've got a little metal plate that's tiny, just the size of my digit.
Gotcha.
And I call that Trevor. And Trevor is like an opposition device, like a friend. And for those that can see this, I'm holding my cell phone like the sponge.
Right.
And so between my single digit and Trevor, I picked up the sponge and started washing the boat. I'm so glad you helped me describe that to people.
Good.
And and even with my little arm, I can balance things on my little arm.
Wow.
So balancing a sponge, right?
Yeah.
And I I carry plates on my shoulder. Who needs hands and elbows, right? That's how I carry plates. So and I balance my cell phone on my shoulder, my little arm all the time. And I drop my phone a lot less than most.
Yes.
Tracy, I mean, what we must say as well, you must be working a lot harder doing simple tasks. So let's not take that away from you, that you are working extra hard to perform simple tasks. So honestly, today's show, I have to step up my game after today.
Yes. Well, and that was Magnus, right? So 3 months of washing and waxing Magnus's boats and sleeping in his parking lot, hiding behind big boats. And it took 3 months before Magnus said, "Come on, let's go sailing." And so stepping up your game isn't just about being passionate in the moment. It's about believing you can do it and then and speaking to others listening, right? Magnus must have people that want him all the time. But I needed to make a difference and let him see that I wasn't just passionate today, but that I was going to stick around. I was going to be there with or without him. And sometimes that's what it takes. So yes, fabulous difference makers. And I'm already impressed how you step up your game, but step up your game and stick with it. Stick through those roller coasters that Tim mentioned earlier on.
So it's all in for you. And that's really, because you understand how our thoughts and feelings create our reality every nanosecond. Usually our subconscious mind's creating our thoughts. That's why a lot of things go wrong or go not the way we want in life, because we're letting our subconscious steer the ship, pun intended. And bless you. And then, but however, your conscious thoughts and your feelings, your decision, you were all in. Whether your subconscious didn't think that you could do it or not didn't really matter at that point, because you committed all in. You sold everything. You went down to Miami. You just hung out at his boatyard, helped him wash his ships for months. And then when that moment came, it came, and then bam, you were on a ship. You're sailing around the world. Do you want to share that experience with everybody? What you experienced?
Well, and sailing, I was aiming for Paralympic trials.
Right.
But Magnus got me so that I could sail in World Cup Olympic class regattas, right, with 27 able-bodied men and 3 women. And even if I came 30th in that race, 30th, I would be 30th in the whole world as a woman with no hands and no legs. But I didn't. I came 7th, right? Like, so against able-bodied.
Describe the experience that you had that most people never have, being on a ship, sailing around the world, and what you see in the sunrises and the ocean and the quietness and the peacefulness. And describe some of this that you'll never take away. It reminds me of a Forrest Gump in part of the movie when he's running around the world, and he was talking about is it Amy or Jamie? What was his girlfriend that he always loved? And he was talking about how, you're with me the whole time, because I see you in the sun. I see you in the trees. But describe a little bit what you experienced and how that's kind of just added to your colorful life you have.
When I'm in a boat, time just disappears. Like I often go out. I remember when I went out in the North Sea. I was in Holland, and there was this really cool little catamaran. It was a 1-person boat, and I went out in the morning, and I thought I was out 30 minutes. And I was just sailing and loving it, and wasn't hungry, wasn't thirsty, didn't have to go to the washroom. And I didn't think about the laundry. I didn't think about anything, right? I was just sailing. And this little motorboat comes up beside of me, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm having a great time." And they're like, "Tracy, you've been gone like 5 hours. We had no idea if you're alive or what," right? And and that happens all the time when I'm in a boat. Like it just disappears. I get in a boat and it just disappears. And when I started sailing, I grew up in a affordable housing. Nobody else on my street sails.
Yeah.
And when I started sailing, I failed my first year because I've got no legs. I kept falling out of the boat. I knew the parts of the boat. I knew the points of sail, but
Can you
they
swim?
can't award you a sailing level. And I could swim.
Okay, all
I
right.
could swim. I got that one arm's really strong, and I had a life jacket on. But I failed, and so even if you're failing out there, listeners, it doesn't mean you're not going to be World Cup at whatever you do. You're the only difference between failing and success is one more try. You just got to keep climbing back in your boat. You got to just keep going. And sometimes our head is inside our boat. And it wasn't until I got my head out of the boat, looking ahead and seeing where the wind was on the water, that I learned to balance in the boat and take off. And by learning how to look ahead and balance, that's what made me a World Cup sailor, is I'm really good at seeing the wind. And so all those able-bodied people, they can get their head out of the boat and see the wind too, but they're not. They're in their boat. They're inside their boat. And so even though they can physically outperform me, it's myself that's looking ahead out of survival, or I'd fall out.
Of course.
But that bonus is it gave me a skill, right?
Right.
And it's wonderful. So in everything I do, I get my head out of the boat now. And when I'm failing, it's usually because I'm inside my head.
It's amazing. And Mark, can we talk to Tracy now about higher power? Because I know you believe in a higher power, whether it's Jesus, God, whatever it may be. But Mark, can we focus on how that really carries you forward? Because it's a spiritual experience what you're actually living. You're a perfect example of a spiritual being with all the limits to a physical body. You're a spiritual being that actually overcomes that through just the drive. And let's talk credit to that. What do you believe in? And how is this incorporated into your life? And how is it expressed on a day-to-day basis in your life?
Is that to Mark or to Tracy?
To you, Tracy. Sorry.
To me, Tracy. Well, yeah. I think it's massive. And I think I went on a bit of a roller coaster on my spiritual journey. I always believe in the universe, and I always believe in the power of manifestation. I think where people come awry is we talk a lot about believing it. And they're like, I believe I'm going to be the number one singer in the world. But it isn't about believing it. It's about believing it and making it happen. You got to make it happen. And my spiritual journey, what I talk about with the ups and downs, is being born a 4-way amputee. I believe I was born exactly the way I was meant to be. And I believe you and all of our listeners were born exactly the way they were meant to be. Our life's journeys, as tough as they might be, are exactly what they're meant to be. And so my spiritual journey was a bit jaded along the way as a teenager, right? I can do it, and people underestimating, and a defensive sort of fostering because of being underestimated so much and being capable, and people not knowing. Like, I hold a cup of tea and people think I'm inspirational, right? They don't know I climbed the Himalayas of Nepal. And I'm like, this is just a cup of tea. What are you wowing about, right? And so that would frustrate me as a teenager. And so people who were evangelistic would come and say, if you pray, God will heal you and make me better. And I believe I was born, and we're all born, exactly the way we were meant to be. So I had a bit of rebelliousness with evangelism and with God, in fact, because there was this idea that there was something wrong with me, and I rejected that idea.
Right. We're going to hold off on a break.
Until I woke up and realized.
Tracy, we're going to hold off on a break because I want to make sure we capture so much more what you're talking about, because I do want to go into, and Mark, you could ask a question if you want in reference to what accomplishments, because this is the first time I'm hearing that she climbed the Himalayas. She sailed around the world. And I want to hear more of your accomplishments, because it's beyond inspiration. It's almost supernatural. It's almost superhuman. And I'm sure, like, because you must. It's like you're always underestimated. So Tracy, when people probably meet you for the first time, they're thinking, wow, how does she hold a cup of tea? And they're not thinking that this lady climbed the Himalayas that I could never do. I'm sure I would have fell off and died at some
Nor
point.
me.
Right, Mark?
Yes, you
But yeah,
can.
when you ask questions around that, Mark,
You
about
can.
what accomplishments she's done, because to me, this is what an underdog, what an underestimation. And one thing I want to say too is I love, and we'll talk about compassion next, but the quote that always reminds me of just how really where the heart is so critical is try not to limit your compassion for someone by your estimation of their intelligence, right? Or someone or something. And often I'm sure that just goes through, they see that you have these challenges physically, but quickly people underestimate your intelligence because of your physical challenges or your ability. And that's something I think is phenomenal.
Yes.
But why don't you go through
Yes.
some of the accomplishments, Mark, with Tracy, what she's done? And ask her
Yes,
to. Yeah.
we are just coming to a commercial break.
Actually, we're gonna hold off on the break, Mark. We're not gonna do a break. We're gonna keep Tracy here live.
Even better.
Yeah.
So Tracy, Unstoppable Tracy, let's all believe and just make it happen. You're so inspiring. Share with our listeners some of your biggest achievements, because there are so many.
And I mean, I think I'm proudest of being a aunt of my niece and nephew, and being a godmom, right? Like, and being the kind of person that's significant in these three magical little lives, and so many little lives. And what, one of my regrets in some ways is not having children, but as a result of people underestimating, I've ended up being around the world and impacting children in over 20 countries. I've been a teacher in Mexico, Nepal, Jamaica, Uganda, like all around the world as a teacher, because I could swim, I could sail, and because I could sail, I could teach sailing. Because I taught sailing, I got into teachers college. And then I've been an honored humanitarian for all of these international travels. And after that, I came back to the corporate world, and Air Canada was on strike, and I helped bust up a strike because that day in kindergarten, I learned that no, N-O just means K-N-O-W. The principal just didn't know. So what's fantastic is that as a 5-year-old, whenever somebody says no forevermore, I hear, well, they just don't know. Magnus just doesn't know, right? The sailors just don't know. The climbers just don't know. And I got to bust up pilot strikes at Air Canada and help with mergers with with Canadian Airlines into Air Canada, and I helped with pharmaceutical reform when the government changed structure. They just don't know. And in Britain there's Boots, and in US there's Walgreens, and in Canada there's Shoppers Drug Mart, and they changed the funding of pharmacy. And I'm the girl that changes no to KNOW. And we increased beauty items, and we increased baby items, and we increased food items. And I didn't come up with those ideas, but I generated the focus groups and the conversations so that those teams could see that. And shame on us for focusing on pharmacy when we could have been making all this money in those other areas all those other years. Thank goodness the pharmacy took a change in its funding structure so that we got to discover all these other great ways to make money. Or Uber couldn't get into Canada, so they bring in the no means KNOW girl, and realizing what that could be. So I feel a great sense of pride in my corporate busting barriers, but I also am an advanced scuba diver, and I do fly planes, and I do jump out of planes, and I have ridden a bike and bobsledder and all sorts of canoeer, kayaker. So a horseback rider. So love anything that somebody says no to. And now it's I decided to write a book, which was really exciting. And I never thought with no hands that I would want to write a book. And here it was. It before it even got published.
Well, pick it
not
up
just
again.
on Amazon,
Pick it up again.
Publisher.
Pick the book up again. Tell us the title and tell what inspired you to write that.
You
Unstoppable You.
And people like you. When you talked about the listeners and people wanting to commit suicide or underestimating themselves as a mom going back to the workplace, or being a corporate person and being brave enough to leave their current job to become an entrepreneur. And so I learned that it isn't about Unstoppable Tracy. All my life was I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. It wasn't about I can do it. it was about 30 other kids could do it too in kindergarten. And it was about everybody in international sailing can do it. And so when I realized Unstoppable You was my message, it took
Yes.
me too many years to figure that out. It wasn't Unstoppable Tracy, it's Unstoppable You. And so that I wrote the book, and I shared the kindergarten story and the Magnus story and skiing story with backwards ski boots and wacky things like that. But at the end of every chapter, I ask you, so what's working for you? What's not working for you? So what are you going to do going ahead? And every chapter has different questions. And so you can self coach yourself, or if you are a coach, you can use these same questions to help support others being unstoppable. So it's a bit of it's a biography, but it's more so a coaching tool for yourself and for others to be, and it's free. You can go to
It's
unstoppableyoubook.ca or
free?
Unstoppable Tracy. It's free. You can get you have to buy the hard copy
Yeah.
so that I can ship it to you.
Right.
But you can get the downloadable copy for free off of unstoppabletracy.com.
Wow.
I'm sure people will want the paperback.
Yes, definitely.
Thank
and
you.
so amazing you even give this for free out there because you really want to make a difference.
Yeah.
What
I'm not selling books to make money,
I know,
right?
I
That's
know.
not how I pay my rent.
I know. Amazing. And what do you right now in your life? You got so much going on. I mean, you accomplish so much more than most humanity could ever do on even a collective level.
Yes.
And you're so young, and you got such a bright future too. Still, what's next? You wrote a book. I mean, what's
Come
next for
on.
Unstoppable Tracy?
Personal life goal is the North Pole. I'd like to go to the magnetic North Pole, be the first woman with a disability to go to the North Pole.
Oh my!
And I met some folks in Russia, actually, that are going to get me there.
Amazing. No kidding. I want to come to your boats and wash your boat with you. Can I do that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, you can.
And
I'll come to Atlanta. How about that?
Even better. I'll tell you what. And you have a place to stay. I have a cool place. You come, and I'll just listen to every word by your side and just soak it all in. So I'll tell you what. You are remarkable. This is Mark. What an incredible soul. And what to me is what's most important is her mentorship, is your inspiration you have for others. People with half the challenges as you have had, and are just want to give up. I mean, even the kids who don't have a physical challenge, but just it's a mental challenge. It's an emotional. It's a prison that we create every day, like we said earlier with the suicide. So, what are some of the inspirations that you do give them? I love the know as a KNOW. They just don't know. I love that
They
you
just don't know.
Yeah,
Don't be stopped by no.
right. Yes, and what have you seen where people? Because your compassion, I want to get to your compassion aspect of it, because you would not do what you're doing if you weren't a very compassionate soul. It just wouldn't be happening. So how do you get people out of their heads and into their hearts? Is you have a technique for that, or is just your energy does it when they first meet you?
Well, then that's a really tough question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. It just sort of seems automatic, and I realize it's not an automatic, already way of always thinking. But who one day, everybody's going through different personal development courses, and a gazillion years ago I went through one, and they had you define what would make you wake up every day super motivated, and it was like a 48-hour process. And what I defined for myself was that who I am is laughter, love, and magic. And so any decision I make is influenced by that filter. Is this a decision in laughter, love, and magic? And so that motivates me. And that seems a little bit, I'm almost afraid to share that out loud with folks because people almost discredit it. I want you to know I've also got a master's in business. And, I have a teaching degree, and I have several degrees. I also have an art diploma and all sorts of pieces, which I did my art diploma online because I didn't want to be graded for having no hands. I wanted my art to be graded for art's sake. So my art teachers have no idea that I'm a 4-way amputee. They have no idea that I didn't use my legs and my hands
No kidding.
to submit my artwork. So, and I got A+, but they don't know why.
No kidding. Did you ever go back after the fact? I've been like, here you go.
I have not.
Well, see, you're very humble, and I really appreciate that attribute of yours too. For such a a paradigm shifter, I would consider you a paradigm shifter, and on many levels. And that to me is like the highest award I could ever give anybody of friends or people I know is shifting a paradigm. And this paradigm that we live in, this world of limits, of the limits that we put ourselves in, of the self imprisonment that we put ourselves in. You are a breaker of change. You are Daenerys of the redheaded Daenerys, if she had red hair. You are that breaker of chains, and I think that is a incredible legacy to create. And it's amazing to me how and plus on the business aspect, I could tell you're a very shrewd businesswoman as well. I'm sure. How do you make your living? How can we support you in that process?
Well, you could certainly get the book as nothing to shake a stick at. I didn't mean it exactly that way, but
sure.
My now the last 2 years, I do leadership development and corporate consulting, but I have been like in 2019, 20 countries. Right, the last 30 days, 22 cities, and I have 22 cities in my next 30 days.
Wow!
So I'm mostly paying my rent in stages, big stages around the world.
Right.
So if you have an event or a gathering or a team development, certainly inviting me as a speaker so that I can leave everyone feeling unlimitless. My specialty is disarming limiting beliefs.
And you are an incredible speaker, Unstoppable Tracy. Your delivery, the way you share your message, I highly, highly recommend. I can't wait to see you in person as well.
Mark Steven.
So, Tracy, what's the best way people to reach you?
Nice and easy, nice and simple. Unstoppable Tracy. Unstoppable has 2 P's. It's so unstoppable. And Tracy, I like to say no legs, no hands, and no E in Tracy. It's just Tracy. Nice and simple. And that's my Instagram, my Facebook, my website, my YouTube.
Right.
# Unstoppable Tracy, and you'll find me on your favorite platform.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Including my website.
I'm there, and I love what you're doing, and I love Mark, her liveliness, and thank God you're a redhead, because you wouldn't have had that feistiness to really, push through there. And I think that is something that you should always be grateful for. And just amazing what you've been able to do. So you've been TEDx. I mean, you're going to North Pole. So I don't know what else you could be doing outside of that. But all I know is I want to be around your energy. I want to just learn from you. I just think that you're a remarkable soul. And I thank God that you are alive here today and making an impression with all these other souls out there who need this inspiration more so now than ever before, as we shift into this higher level of consciousness. And as we show people that they don't have to be down these lower frequency beliefs, we could raise them up and be inspired with people like you. And thank God for Unstoppable Tracy, guys. Let's a little round of applause for Unstoppable Tracy, right? There you go.
Unstoppable us.
Yeah, unstoppable you. So, guys, thank you so much. Hey, Tracy, stand for a second if you guys can for a minute. But I want to thank you all listeners for getting involved. I know Facebook had a little late start, but we got you on there. Guys, don't forget, we have a lot coming up here. If you missed the Wake in Atlanta yesterday, it was a great show. We had a special co-host with me, Dina Babel, and also we had Tim Owens. And so check it out back on our app, uimediaapp.com, as well as go down to the shift.com down in Atlanta today. You're going to meet incredible souls. And don't forget, we have today, Monday, Tanya MFK, our new show, and on Mindset and Manifestation Coach. She'll be there. She has Kyle Opperman. He'll be there sharing his information that you're going to love. It's a must-see. Trace, that's I should say, that is Tanya MFK, her new show. And so outside of that, guys, hope you enjoyed the show and more to come. And thank you and have a great day. And we'll see you soon. See you down at ShiftCom.
See you.
You have been listening to the Good Intentions Show on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intentions Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions, and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Be sure to log on to unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions, one intention at a time. Have a wonderful day, And until next time, live life with intent.